Hello and welcome to the coronavirus update for the 28th of April 2020, where there are now over 3 million cases confirmed in the world, 1 million confirmed cases in the United States. And I don't want to dwell on this too long today. I did actually get talking to someone from Russia, and they were saying that Russia looks very bad. And they were saying they know someone who's in Moscow. And in Moscow, if you take a look at the daily cases, by the way, so these are new daily confirmed cases, it does sort of look like it's starting to plateau. But what they were saying is that, okay, it's all secondhand information, but even if you got a strong fever in Moscow, you still don't get a coronavirus test. They basically run out of tests. So it might just be that the reason the cases are going down is because there are no more tests. So what does everyone else look like? Let's take a look at Italy. They were the original hotspot. They are going down fairly nicely. They're still not down to the point where their daily new cases are where they were when they entered lockdown, but they're getting there. And the United Kingdom is a disaster movie, and they're still only testing people who go into hospital. And I hear stories again and again that this is you plot the deaths from last year and the deaths from this year. This number is maybe a factor of two undercounted, but it doesn't really matter. Their numbers are they've got the same regime of counting, so you can make an estimate of how long this is going to go on for, and it's barely peaked in the United Kingdom. And with the United States, similarly, there is maybe some signs of it going down here. But with the United States, about a third of the cases, you can almost break the US down into two areas. There's New York and everywhere else. A third of the cases were in New York. They were early. And then there's everywhere else that cooked up afterwards. So you might actually sort of get some elements of bimodal behavior in the US data. But either way, it still looks like you're in for, you used to the extrapolation off the end there. You're looking at a couple of months probably until you're down to sort of state of emergency type declaration numbers. So what I mainly wanted to talk about today was the really bizarre statements that Trump was coming out with about, can't we, light knocks it out really quickly, and so do disinfectants, so why can't we put lights inside the body or inject disinfectants or something? I mean, the simple answer is, yeah, you do that, you're going to kill the patient. But why did he come out with such stupid ideas? And it's when you actually know the sequence of events, it's fairly simple. The guy who was talking before him presented this slide here, which you can actually blow up here, and it's got the half-life. Now, half-lives here are significantly different than the half-lives that you get in radioactivity. Okay, it's the number for half of the virus particles to die or to become inactive. So in that sense, it's the same. The difference is that means that with radioactivity, the hazard has halved. That's not true with viruses. As long as there are active particles, it's dangerous because viruses self-replicate, whereas radioactivity doesn't. So even with Trump's statement about sunlight knocks it out in just a minute, he's way off. I mean, I'm just going to make some estimates shortly. What if there are 1 million virus particles on your finger or something? How long is it going to take for all of those virus particles to become inactive in summer with sunlight, with summer solar sunlight? And sunlight, by the way, is bloody ferocious stuff. It's 1,000 watts per square meter, kilowatt per square meter. 3 square meters is enough to sort of run a kettle. Anyway, so what we need now is a virus. It's a lipid bilayer. That's this guy here. This is effectively destroyed both by drying out by detergents or by oxidation, which you can get either by washing your hands or irradiating it. The bit inside is RNA, and if that gets into your cells, that's pretty much game over. So if you destroy the cell membrane, the RNA has no way of getting into your cells, and the virus is inactive. Victory. The problem is these little bastards are small and prolific. Really, really prolific. In fact, it's stunning if you think about it, that just this little piece of DNA has sort of crippled this little bit of RNA here has crippled half of the planet. It's got no plan, no intelligence, and just that little bit of DNA, if it gets into your cells, it makes more of these viruses, and that's a problem. Okay, so we're going to take a look at what maybe a relatively low viral loading would be. So these are electron micrographs, and someone's done some staining or coloring or something like that, and to highlight the virus particles budding out from the cell. Now the virus particles here are about a tenth of a micron by a tenth of a micron. That's roughly their length scale. So if we actually take a blow up of this guy, what's the sort of size of the square that we're looking at here? What's our field of view with this electron microscope, or TEM or whatever? So if that's a tenth of a micron, by the way is a millionth of a meter or 1,000th of a millimeter. So this sort of area here is going to be a square micron-ish, right? So that means that the rough area of the frame here is, I'm going to say it's 10 microns by 10 microns. It doesn't really matter. I just want to give you something to give some perspective on this. So if this is a 10 microns, then if it were 10 times as long in that direction, that would be 100 microns. And if it's 100 times bigger in that direction, that would be 1,000 microns, which is a millimeter. So if this, how many frames would I need like this for 1 millimeter? So it's 100 that way and 100 that way. So that's 10,000. There are 10,000 frames like this in a square millimeter. So if I had a single virus particle in this frame of view, it would actually be hard to detect with an electron microscope. But we would still have 10,000 virus particles like that in a square millimeter. So if it's going to be 10,000 per for 1 millimeter times by 1 millimeter, a centimeter is of course 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters, so it's 100 times that. 100, there we go. That's 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. Okay, cool. And that is a cool million, I think, divided by 1 e to the 6. Indeed, it would be 1 million virus particles on something about the size of your little fingertip. That's about 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. A million virus particles. And if you were to get it on the electron microscope, you would have a single virus particle. It would be virtually undetectable. Getting a picture like this takes a long time. And, the coloring and staining takes even longer. But, so, you would need, how many half-lives? Well, I mean, first of all, million. Decent European country is about 50 million people. So if I had, 10 fingers, 10 million virus particles, it's getting on for the order of magnitude where you can infect the entire country with these relatively low viral loadings on your finger. Now, the thing that saves you, of course, is those virus particles, just having them on your fingers not enough. They've got to get into your lungs, or into your respiratory system, and loads of them die along the way. Okay? There's no smart to a virus. But they win on numbers. But if we were looking at the straight, where's our thing here? A biological half-life of 1 minute. How long is it before there are no virus particles left on my finger? So we're going to start off with 1 million. It's going to be after minute 1. And what are we doing? Sorry. Last one. There we go. So that's how many minutes we've got. Each one is a half-life. So after 2 minutes, you're down to 500,000 particles. And after 24 minutes, you would be clean. So your last active virus particle is after about 20 minutes. And that is the better case scenario where you've got low humidity, it's an aerosol, it's summertime. Still going to be active for about half an hour. And obviously, if you go down to a hot surface but no sunlight, still high humidity, you're looking at an hour, which means that this now becomes hours. You'd still have active virus particles basically after a day. So if these were like, I don't know, climbing frame or something, the underside of a climbing frame where someone's touched it, but there's no direct sunlight on it. And by the time you're on to these sorts of things, it's active for almost a month. Yeah? So this is where my big concern is that I reckon this thing's going to survive in freezers or something. You go to freezers, and when the virus freezes, there are studies like this, it kills 90% of the virus, which sounds good. You've killed 90% of the virus, which means that when it, let's say I get my 1 million virus particles into the fridge and I kill 90% of them. So times by 0.1, which means that I only have 100,000 active virus particles afterwards. So, this is why, viruses have never really been shaken off by the organisms. It's also the science on viruses, it sort of verges almost on black magic in terms of how these things move around and all that sort of thing. All you really know is when they get in someone's lungs, they start producing loads more viruses, and you can do little micrographs like that. You can sort of do the DNA tests of the stuff, or the RNA tests of the stuff that people are coughing out. You can detect it there. But let's say I cough out, how many particles do I actually need to cause an infection? Now, this is something called viral load, but even working out how many active virus particles there are is almost black magic. You can't tell which ones these are active and which ones are not. And if these get onto someone's face or something, how many of those are actually taken out by the immune system, or they fail to interact properly with the cells? There's a whole raft of unknowns here. All you really know is that at the end, an infected cell pumps out lots of virus particles. But in terms of how many virus particles does someone who is infected cough out, it's difficult to say. There really are no sensible numbers that I can find. Virtually all the people who work with viruses have this sort of activity rating, which is you get a cell culture, you get what you think is your active solution, and you put the viruses onto the cell cultures, and they grow up. They infect the cells, and then you dilute it in by half, and you see if it still grows, and you dilute it by half, and you see if it still grows, and you keep doing that till it doesn't grow anymore. And that's basically when they say that the viral load is zero, or the virus activity is zero. So these are really kind of fuzzy numbers at best. I mean, they're decent for an order of magnitude. I mean, all of these, if you look at them, there's only a couple orders of magnitude here, and the studies that they do here are, again, they're useful as a sort of guide for the eye. Like with the UK numbers, if there are a factor of 2 out on the big scale, does it really matter? You're getting a good feel for the trends and all that sort of thing. With the viruses, I've lost my train of thought. What was I going to say about the viruses? Yes, the order of magnitude. The order of magnitude of how active they are. But these studies were done on nice clean surfaces, so you get studies where they have a plastic surface or a metal surface. Don't you dare do that to me. And it gives you a feel for where the virus lives longer and where it dies more quickly. And I saw a study like this with face masks, and the virus lives on face masks very, very well. This is a sort of comparable number to how long the virus lives on face masks. So if you do get a virus if you do have a face mask of someone who's infected, give that thing a wide berth. And likewise, if you're wearing a face mask and let's just say for sake of argument that it's filtering out these virus particles, those virus particles are probably still active on your face mask. So those are maybe things to bear in mind. Okay, so I'm going to tie it up there. And if you found that useful, give us a thumbs up. And I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.